The moment I tripped over my own feet and crashed straight into Jake's chest after that chaotic end-of-semester party. The entire room seemed to freeze around us. His arms locked around my waist to keep me from hitting the floor, and before I could pull away, his low voice brushed against my ear with words I never expected. "I've got you, Alex. Always have." My heart slammed against my ribs like it wanted to escape because in that split second, every wall I'd built to hide who I really was cracked wide open. I was supposed to be the quiet art major from a small town in Illinois, the guy who blended into the background at the University of Chicago, the one who laughed at straight jokes and dated no one. Jake was the opposite, star soccer player, broad-shouldered, always surrounded by a crowd, the kind of roommate I'd requested by accident when housing messed up my application. We'd shared the tiny off-campus apartment for 6 months without a single issue. He blasted music while I sketched, he cooked pasta while I studied, and I told myself the flutter in my stomach every time he smiled was just roommate camaraderie. Nothing more. I was straight in public, buried in denial in private, and that had worked fine until tonight. Now here I was, still in his hold, the scent of his cologne mixing with the faint beer on his breath, and those 4 words echoing louder than the bass thumping from the next room. I muttered something about being clumsy and stepped back, but my legs felt like jelly. Jake didn't let go right away. His blue eyes searched mine under the dim hallway light, and for the first time, I wondered if he saw more than the awkward guy who paid half the rent. "You okay, man? You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a laugh, the kind that sounded too high and too fake even to me. "Yeah, just the drinks hitting late. Thanks for the save." He nodded, but the corner of his mouth twitched like he didn't quite buy it. We walked back to our apartment in silence, the Chicago winter wind cutting through my jacket like it knew my secrets too. Inside, I headed straight for my room, door clicking shut behind me, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there replaying the whisper, the way his hands had felt steady and warm, and the terrifying realization that pretending was no longer an option. Not when every beat of my pulse screamed that I was falling for the one person I could never have. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds like nothing had changed, but everything had. Jake was already in the kitchen, flipping eggs in a skillet, humming along to some indie playlist. "Morning, hero," he teased without turning around. "Coffee's ready." I grabbed a mug, avoiding his eyes, and mumbled thanks. We ate in our usual rhythm, him scrolling sports news on his phone, me doodling on a napkin, but the air felt thicker. My mind raced through every interaction we'd had. The late-night talks about his family back in Texas, the way he always saved me the last slice of pizza, the casual shoulder bumps after a good game. Had I missed the signs, or was I projecting my own feelings? By afternoon, I escaped to the campus library, burying myself in a history textbook, but the words blurred. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Can't wait for your holiday visit next month. Dad's been asking about any special girl in your life." I stared at the screen until it went dark. Special girl. The phrase landed like a punch. Back home in Peoria, my parents still pictured me settling down with a nice girl from church, carrying on the family name. Coming out wasn't even on the table. It would shatter them. I'd seen the headlines, heard the whispers about that phase, and I wasn't ready to be the disappointment who proved them right. Jake knocked on my door that evening, holding 2 controllers. Mario Kart rematch? Loser buys pizza. It was our ritual, safe and normal. I agreed because saying no would raise questions I couldn't answer. We played for hours, laughing at the same stupid blue shell moments, and for a while, the tension eased. But when he won and punched my arm lightly, the contact sent sparks up my skin. "You're distracted tonight," he observed, pausing the game. "Party still messing with your head?" I shrugged, focusing on the screen. "Just final stress." He didn't push, but later, as we cleaned up, he said quietly, "You know you can talk to me, right? About anything." His voice carried the same gentle tone from last night, and my throat tightened. I wanted to spill everything. The years of hiding, the fear of losing the only real friend I'd made in college. The way his whisper had rewritten my rules. Instead, I nodded and retreated to bed, the weight of unspoken words pressing down harder than ever. Little did I know, That fall into his arms was only the beginning of a chain reaction I couldn't stop. Weeks blurred into a tense routine after that party. I threw myself into my senior thesis on urban landscapes, sketching Chicago's skyline until my fingers cramped, but Jake's presence filled every empty space. He'd started lingering in the living room longer, asking about my day with genuine interest that went beyond roommate small talk. One evening, while I was washing dishes, he leaned against the counter, drying a plate. "You ever think about what comes after graduation?" The question caught me off guard. I rinsed a glass slowly. "Art gallery gig, maybe teaching." "You," he grinned. "Coaching kids soccer somewhere warm. But honestly, I'm not rushing. This setup's pretty solid." His eyes held mine a second too long, and my pulse spiked. Was he hinting at something, or was I reading too much into it? The internal tug-of-war exhausted me. By day, I was the reliable Alex who aced critiques and volunteered at the campus LGBTQ center anonymously. By night, I lay awake questioning every glance from Jake, every shared laugh. Denial had been my armor, but his whisper had dented it permanently. Then came the call from home that cracked the facade wider. Mom's voice bubbled over the line during our weekly check-in. "Your cousin Sarah's getting married in June. You should bring someone special. Maybe that girl you've been seeing." I froze in the kitchen, Jake in the next room, watching a game. No one's serious, Mom." The lie tasted bitter. Dad chimed in from the background. "Son, life's too short to be alone. Find a good woman like your mother." I ended the call with promises I couldn't keep, then sank onto the couch. Jake muted the TV. "Everything okay?" His concern was real, no judgment in sight. I almost broke then, but fear clamped my mouth shut. Instead, I changed the subject to his upcoming match, and he let it slide. That night, alone in my room, the weight of family expectations mixed with my growing feelings for him until I couldn't breathe. I was 22, an adult in a city of millions, yet still chained to a version of myself that didn't exist. The misunderstanding hit during midterms. My best friend from freshman year, Liam, cornered me in the coffee shop near campus. Liam was out and proud, the one person who knew my secret and had kept it for 2 years. "Dude, you've been dodging me. What's with the radio silence?" I sipped my latte, avoiding his stare. "Just busy." He leaned in. "It's Jake, isn't it? I saw you two at the party. The way he caught you. Alex, if you're falling for the straight guy, that's a recipe for heartbreak." His words stung because they echoed my own fears. I snapped back defensively. "It's not like that. He's just a good roommate." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Keep telling yourself that. But if he finds out and freaks, don't say I didn't warn you." The conversation ended on a sour note, and I left feeling exposed, like my carefully balanced world was tilting. Back at the apartment, Jake noticed my mood immediately. "Rough day." He tossed me a beer from the fridge. We sat on the balcony overlooking the snowy streets, and for the first time, I let a sliver of truth slip. "Family stuff. They think I'm someone I'm not." He nodded slowly. "Parents can be tough. Mine still think I'm going to marry my high school sweetheart. But people change, Alex. You got to live your life." His words landed softly, without pressure, and in that moment, the crush I'd buried deepened into something scarier. Hope. As December deepened, the city lights reflected off Lake Michigan like scattered diamonds, but inside me a storm brewed. Jake invited me to his soccer team's holiday party, insisting I needed a break. I went dressed in my best button-down, nerves jangling. The room was loud with laughter and holiday music, teammates slapping backs and sharing stories. Jake introduced me proudly as the best roommate ever, and warmth spread through my chest. Later, when a tipsy teammate asked if I had a girlfriend, Jake jumped in smoothly. "Alex is focused on his art right now. Future gallery star." No awkwardness, no probing. On the walk home through crisp air, snow crunching under our boots, he bumped my shoulder. "Thanks for coming. Means a lot." I smiled despite the chaos in my head. But as we reached the door, his phone lit up with a text from his ex, and the brief flash of her name reminded me of the boundary I'd never cross. That whisper from weeks ago replayed uninvited. I went to bed wondering how much longer I could pretend my heart wasn't already his. Winter break arrived like a temporary truce, but the tension followed me home to Peoria. The family house smelled of pine and Mom's famous cookies, yet every conversation felt like a minefield. Dad grilled me over dinner about career plans and settling down, while my sister teased about bringing a date to Christmas Eve service. I smiled through it all, the perfect sun on the outside, but inside, Jake's text kept me grounded. Miss our late-night talks. Apartment's too quiet without you. Simple words, yet they lit up my phone and my doubts. I replied casually, but each message chipped away at my resolve. On Christmas morning, unwrapping a new sketchbook for my parents, guilt twisted in my gut. They loved me unconditionally, or so I thought, but the version they loved didn't include loving men. I slipped away to the backyard, snow blanketing the old swing set, and dialed Jake on impulse. He answered on the second ring, voice warm despite the miles. Merry Christmas, man. How's the family circus? We talked for an hour about nothing and everything, his laugh easing the knot in my chest. When I hung up, the realization hit hard. He was becoming my safe place, the one person who made the hiding feel unbearable. Back at school in January, the misunderstanding with Liam escalated. He showed up at our apartment unannounced while Jake was at practice. We need to talk, he said, eyes serious. Over cold coffee, he laid it out. I saw Jake's Instagram story from the party. The way he looks at you in the background shots. Alex, either he's clueless or he's not as straight as you think. But if you don't tell him, someone else might. The accusation landed like a slap. You wouldn't. Liam sighed. Not me, but rumors spread. Protect yourself. He left, and I paced the living room, heart racing. When Jake walked in later, sweaty from drills, he sensed the shift immediately. You look like you fought a bear. Spill. I hesitated, then shared a watered-down version. Family pressure, friend drama. He listened without interrupting, then said, whatever it is, I'm on your side. Roommates, remember? More than that, actually. His hand rested on my shoulder briefly, and the contact burned. That night, alone, I stared at the ceiling, the high from his support crashing against the fear of losing him if truth emerged. The high point of tension came at the campus art show in February. My thesis pieces hung on the walls, sketches of cityscapes intertwined with hidden figures reaching out. Jake surprised me by showing up early, dressed sharp in a button-down that made my breath catch. These are incredible, he said, studying one piece that unconsciously mirrored our balcony talks. A group of classmates gathered, including a guy from my studio class who had flirted before. He pulled me aside. Your roommate's hot. Straight, right? Too bad. The comment stung, and Jake must have overheard because later, as we walked out into the cold night, he asked quietly, does it bother you when people assume things about us? My steps faltered. What do you mean? He stopped under a street lamp, breath visible in the air. I mean, I don't care what they think. You're my best friend here, Alex. More important than any label. The words hung between us, charged and full of unspoken layers. I wanted to confess everything right there. The crush, the denial, the way his whisper months ago had started this avalanche. Instead, I nodded and kept walking, the silence heavy with what-ifs. But as we reached the apartment, Jake paused at the door. One day, you'll tell me what's really going on in that head of yours. And I'll be ready. His quiet promise followed me inside. And for the first time, I believe maybe, just maybe, the fall hadn't been an accident at all. Spring semester brought longer days and blooming trees along Lakeshore Drive, but my internal storm only intensified. Family weekend loomed, and my parents announced a surprise visit to Chicago. We want to see where our boy's making his mark, Dad said over the phone, pride thick in his voice. Panic set in immediately. The apartment was our shared space. Jake's soccer trophies mixed with my canvases, and hiding my truth there felt impossible. I tried cleaning like a madman, rehearsing neutral stories, but Jake caught me mid-frenzy. Parents coming? Relax. I'll make myself scarce if you want. The offer was kind, yet it hurt because I didn't want scarce. I wanted him there, as proof that my world wasn't broken. Stay, I blurted. They'll love meeting you. He raised an eyebrow, but agreed with a grin. Your call, man. The visit started smoothly enough. Mom hugged me tight at the train station, Dad clapped my back, and we toured campus under clear blue skies. Jake joined for dinner at a local Italian spot, charming them effortlessly with stories of games and study sessions. Alex keeps me grounded, he said, passing the bread basket. Mom beamed. We're so glad he is a good friend like you. Dad nodded approvingly. For a few hours, the lie held. But back at the apartment, over coffee, Dad steered the talk to my future. Any nice girls catching your eye? College is the time to find someone steady. The room went quiet. Jake glanced at me, sensing the shift. I mumbled something vague about focusing on art, but Mom pressed gently. Honey, we just want you happy. Life's better shared. Their well-meaning words cracked my composure. Later, after they left for their hotel, I stood on the balcony alone, wind whipping my hair, tears stinging my eyes. Jake joined me silently, leaning on the railing. They mean well, he said softly, but they don't know you like I do. His presence steadied me, yet the gap between their expectations and my reality yawned wider. That night, sleep evaded me as I weighed the cost of truth, losing family or losing myself. The confrontation peaked the next morning during brunch. Dad noticed a photo on my desk, Jake and me at a campus event, arms slung casually around each other. Handsome kid. Teammate. Before I could answer, Mom added, you two seem close. Like brothers. Jake, helping clear plates, chuckled. Closer than that some days. The innocent remark hung, and Dad's brow furrowed slightly. Just make sure it doesn't distract from real life, son. The subtle warning landed like a stone in my gut. After they departed, waving from the platform, Jake turned to me in the station. That was intense. You held up great, but I didn't feel great. I felt fractured. Back home, I finally voiced a piece of it. What if I'm not who they think I am? Jake's response came steady. Then you show them who you are. I'll be right there. His support was a lifeline, but the whisper of doubt remained. Could our bond survive the full weight of my secret? As weeks passed, external pressures mounted too. A conservative campus group started petitions against alternative lifestyles in dorms, stirring old fears. Liam texted apologies for our earlier fight, but the damage lingered. I poured everything into my art, creating a new series of shadowed figures stepping into light, mirrors of my own journey. Jake noticed the change, offering quiet encouragement during late studio sessions. One rainy afternoon, he brought me coffee unasked. These pieces, they're you, aren't they? His insight startled me. I nodded slowly. The air thickened with possibility, and for a heartbeat, I considered telling him everything. But the words stuck. Family weekend had reminded me of the stakes, and I wasn't ready to gamble our fragile equilibrium. Yet each day, his steady presence chipped away at my fear, turning the roommate into my anchor in a sea of uncertainty. The betrayal came without warning in early April, right before spring break. I'd finally opened up to Liam again over lunch, sharing fragments of my feelings for Jake and the family strain. I'm thinking about telling him, I admitted. Liam listened, then hugged me. Proud of you, man. Whatever happens, you've got me. Or so I thought. 2 days later, at a crowded house party off campus, rumors exploded. A mutual friend pulled me aside. Dude, Liam's been talking. Said you're into Jake and scared to come out. My stomach dropped. I confronted Liam in the backyard, music pulsing behind us. Why? He looked guilty but defensive. I was drunk, Alex. It slipped. I thought it might help you stop hiding. The apology rang hollow as whispers spread through the crowd. Jake arrived late, oblivious at first, but the shift in energy hit him quick. Teammates shot curious glances. One even joked awkwardly about roommate goals. Humiliation burned my face. I wanted to vanish. Jake found me on the porch later, jaw tight. What's going on? People are acting weird. I couldn't meet his eyes. Rumors. About me. About us. The words tumbled out broken. He waited, patient as always. Tell me the truth, Alex. All of it. In the cool night air, with betrayal fresh and fear choking me, I finally cracked. I'm gay. Have been forever. And that night, I fell into your arms. Your whisper. It made me realize I feel something for you. More than friends. I'm sorry if that ruins everything. Silence stretched, heavy and terrifying. Then Jake stepped closer. You think that changes us? Alex, I've been waiting for you to say something. Not because of rumors, because I see you. The real you. His voice held no shock, only quiet understanding. Relief crashed over me like a wave, but the fallout was immediate. Word reached my family through a distant relative who'd heard the campus gossip. Mom called the next morning, voice trembling. Is it true? What they're saying? The conversation shattered like glass. Tears, questions, Dad's stunned silence in the background. We need time, son. The line went dead, leaving me hollow. Jake stayed by my side through the chaos, skipping practice to sit with me in the apartment. They'll come around. Families do. But doubt not. I sacrificed the safety of my closet for honesty, yet the cost felt immense. Strained family ties, awkward silences with teammates, even a professor's subtle side-eye in class. One night, after a particularly rough day, Jake pulled me into a hug on the couch. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. The embrace echoed that first fall, but now it was mutual, intentional. His sacrifice came too, defending me publicly at a team meeting when jokes turned cruel. Alex is family. Anyone has a problem, they answer to me. His loyalty moved me to tears later, alone in my room. The awakening was painful but real. I was no longer pretending. Growth meant facing consequences head-on, choosing truth over comfort. As spring flowers pushed through the earth outside, something inside me bloomed too. The courage to own my story, no matter the ending. By finals week, the campus buzz had quieted, but my world had transformed. Family calls grew tentative. Mom sending recipes with thinking of you notes. Dad awkwardly asking about art shows instead of girls. Progress, fragile but present. Jake and I navigated the new territory with careful steps. Shared dinners turning into deeper talks about dreams, fears, futures. No labels rushed, just honest connection that had simmered beneath the surface since that party whisper. My thesis exhibition drew a small crowd, including Jake front and center, clapping loudest when the Shadowed Figure series won an award. You did it, he said afterward, eyes shining. We did, I corrected, and the smile he gave me carried the weight of everything we'd endured. Summer loomed with possibilities. Jake signed a coaching internship in California. I landed a gallery assistant role downtown. The apartment lease ended, but neither of us mentioned separating. On our last night, boxes packed and city lights twinkling below, we stood on the balcony one final time. Remember when you fell into my arms? Jake asked softly. I laughed, the sound free. Hard to forget. It started everything. He turned, expression serious yet warm. And I'd catch you again, every time. Because this us feels right. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The words sealed a chapter and opened another. My identity crisis resolved not in grand drama, but in quiet acceptance and mutual choice. I'd sacrificed secrecy, endured betrayal and family strain, but gained a version of myself unburdened. Growth wasn't linear. It was messy decisions and their echoes, yet standing there with him, the path ahead shone clearer than any skyline I'd sketched. As we loaded the last boxes into the car, the next morning, Chicago's skyline faded in the rear view, symbolizing how far I'd come. Jake reached over, squeezing my hand briefly, a simple gesture loaded with promise. The journey had tested every relationship. Love that bloomed unexpectedly, friendship that held firm, family that bent but didn't break, society that judged but couldn't define me. I'd confronted misunderstandings, weathered prejudice, made the pivotal choice to live openly, and discovered that true strength lay in vulnerability. The emotional scars remained, but so did the awakening that denying my heart had never been sustainable. Now, with Jake beside me, the future stretched bright and uncharted. Was hiding my true self ever the right choice? Or does embracing love always demand we risk everything?